when they are still growing up, even his mother began to notice that there was a sudden change in his character. It was like someone had stolen his mind, and he was someone with low IQ. And us taking him to school was just like throwing money into the river. My sister was the one whom I silenced first after she had seen some of the spiritual beings that she was not supposed to see. Because one day my sister called me, then she said, "Brother, can you rush to the shop right now because it is an emergency?" So I went there without ever telling my wife. When I arrived at my other shop where my sister was assisting me, she then took me into the shop and she closed the shop behind me. Then she said, "Brother, come here. There is something strange that I want to show you." So she then proceeded with opening the cash register, and inside that cash register there was a dead snake. From where that snake had came from, she didn't even know. So she suspected that the snake might have been sent by one of our uncles, since he had been heard saying that he wanted to make sure that poverty was going to humble me. But I knew where this snake had came from because I had seen such a snake in my dream, but I had seen that snake coming out of that priestess's shrine. Anyway, to my sister, I didn't reveal this dream that I had, but I told her to close the shop for the rest of the day, and she was staying at the back of that same shop. I then went to visit that priestess, and I told all that my sister and I had seen and the dream that I had. That was when she told me that my sister was now my number one enemy because she was the one who had blocked my blessing, because the snake meant me no harm. What this snake wanted to do was that it had came to assist me straight out of her shrine so that it can help me to get more customers, and it wanted to give me more money because more customers will be driven to my shop. Even if someone will be passing through my shop, the moment that he would look into my shop, something spiritual will drag them into my shop, so much that by the time that they would have bought something from my shop, they'll keep on asking themselves as to why they had gotten into my shop in the first place. But my sister, she was the one who had stopped this blessing upon falling into my life. This snake was a spiritual being that nobody was supposed to see. So when she saw that snake, the snake then died, and my sister's blood was needed so as to avenge this snake's death. That was how the killing and the sacrifices that started happening in my family began. Each and every time it was one sacrifice after the other, and each and every sacrifice was said to be the last sacrifice that I had to perform, and everything will be okay. Before I could even realize what was going on in my life, my mother's body was lying in the mortuary, and that same snake was sucking up her body fluids and blood. All these things, when they happened, I could see it in real time. Each and every time that this snake could kill any of my relatives, then the snake would grow much bigger because it would feed itself on the human body fluids after the person would have died, then the blood. When one of my last uncle that was remaining passed away, the snake then revealed itself to me as a man who could walk on his own 2 feet. And when that man came to me one day, whilst I was just sitting in my office, the man told me that he was the one who had been responsible of taking care of my family and protecting me against my enemies, and he had came for his own payback. What he wanted was not blood from me anymore. He wanted a wife. So this same snake had chosen 2 of my daughters to be its wives, and it had chosen my son to be the one to further my bloodline. I then forced my son to have children. when I started forcing my son to have children, he was at the age of 14. Now he is turning 27, and by the age of 27 he has 8 kids. And him being, I cannot say mentally unstable, him being slow like in his thinking, he does not even know that he has kids of his own. So what I do, Brother Nash, is that I try as much as I can to take care of these kids that I forced my child to have. I try as much as I can to look after my grandchildren, but it hurts me to know what awaits for them in the future. If only God could give me some powers, if I had the powers to cancel this covenant that I did with that priestess, I will do so. But I am in the same situation that my son, my grandchildren, and my daughters are in. We are both living under the control of this demonic force that seems to be so strong. And as for me, there is no more sacrifice that is required on my side, because what more can I offer? My bloodline is already gone. So even if this demonic entity asks me to sacrifice anything, what do I have to sacrifice apart from my own soul? As for my soul, I think that my soul is just worthless to this demonic entity, because whenever it reveals itself to me, it seems as if I am already doomed in this world and in the next world that I am going to find myself living in after I have died. I have tried, Brother Nashi, to look for ways to go and dump these ritualistic items that were given to me, but there is no one who is willing to accept these ritualistic items. I have approached several herbalists, and most of them, they say that they do not want to be in conflict with the woman whom I had a consultation with. They said that they do not want a war between their shrine and that priestess's shrine. So I am stuck. I have finished off an entire generation with all the sacrifices that I did, including my mother. And as if it is not enough, I then proceeded with cursing the very next generation. By the time that my mother fell ill, I had already been shown that one of my cousin sister, the one that I loved the most amongst all of my relatives on the extended side of our family, she was going to give me a lot of troubles at the time that my mother was going to be lying in the mortuary, because there were some rituals that I was supposed to perform, even though I was not supposed to perform these rituals in that same mortuary. I was going to perform these rituals at home whilst my mother's body will be lying in the mortuary. So I was told that I was not allowed to let that beloved cousin sister of mine to live any longer, because she was quite a dreamer, and most of the things that she would dream about will end up happening in reality. So eventually she was going to see that I was a ritualist. For a moment, when my mother had passed away, she was woken up from the dead, and like a hunting dog, she was then unleashed by that same demonic force upon my cousin sister's life. And what breaks my heart, after the passing away of my mother and after we had buried her, we lived for something like 2 years. Then my sister, that same beloved cousin sister of mine, she fell ill, and by the time that I visited her, when she lay upon her deathbed in the hospital, she proceeded and cursed God, and she died a few moments later. The hope that she once had in God had been taken away, and I had been shown that my beloved cousin sister was going to see that my mother's corpse was already decaying, because the ritual that I was about to perform when my mother's dead body was still lying in the mortuary, in the way that my mother's dead body will decay, it will happen in an unnatural way. So this beloved cousin sister of mine, who was a dreamer, when she would have gone to the mortuary so as to witness that indeed this body once belonged to my mother, she was going to see that it was not a normal thing that a corpse can start decomposing whilst it was still in the mortuary. And if she was going to see all of this unnatural thing that was happening on my mother's dead body, then she would alert the whole family. So I then took that preemptive approach. Then she fell ill even before the burial of my mother. To her, when she fell ill, this was like a normal fever that had affected her, but I had already signed off her death certificate.